In our previous segment, we talked about kind of getting started in homeschooling and why we chose it. But now kind of the nuts and bolts, we're going to talk about what were some of the challenges in getting started in homeschool.
Yeah, I can start with that. I just think whether you're getting started with a 5-year-old, 6-year-old of your own, or like in the pandemic, there's been a lot of people kind of dropped into homeschooling with all age kids. It's so important to have a routine. And if you're not in the habit of having a routine, or you're needing to change your routine, that for me was one of the biggest challenges, is just giving children, having them have the expectation of what's going to happen when. And especially for young children, that's a real security thing for them. But for all of us, I think there is just some security, especially when things are upset in the way we're used to doing things. But yeah, having a routine, it helps if you have a good relationship with your children. If they're young, then of course you want to make sure that they respect your authority and will be obedient to you, because they're going to need to do things they don't want to do necessarily. I mean, you want to try to make it fun and all that, but yeah, there's just going to be some times when they're just going to need to do it. So, and then having some routines in place for even the things that are not strictly classes, like when is laundry going to get done? When is supper going to get made? Those sorts of things. And those are things that you can for sure bring your kids into, because they're going to have to know that stuff when they leave your home. Yes, so yeah, it's real important to have that be a part of things. This isn't just going to be some little thing off to the side, but this is going to change your home life. So for me, anyway, I always encourage gals that are considering homeschooling to start not with the curriculum even, but with those routines, with the obedience and relationship with your kids, getting some things in place as far as who's going to be responsible for what around the home. And of course, being in constant communication with your spouse so that everybody's expectations are on the same page, which may mean for a while a little lower expectations while we're all learning to work as a team. But for sure, that helps a lot in my experience. So
yeah. I mean, when we were starting out, we had, usually had the baby and then maybe a couple kids that we were homeschooling. So we would do the homeschooling where we needed, it was usually math or something that needed, or reading, that we needed time to concentrate. We would do it during nap time.
Yes.
So that we had that chunk of time that we knew was going to be quiet, and we didn't have to worry about maybe the toddler getting into the flower in the cupboard, or, spilling the beads all over the floor, or whatever it was. So, just finding the schedule that worked and making the time meaningful in the beginning.
Yeah, I think when I first started, I had my daughter and then 2 little boys and younger boys, and so it was pretty simple, because I was just doing preschool and then kindergarten, and honestly we could get the actual meat of our stuff done in an hour, so right. We could fit it in at nap time and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I agree, like the routine, we had some routines in place, but what I found is as each year it was different, and so that was hard for me, because I'm like, well, last year we did this and it's not working this year, so I had to learn that, okay, each year, like, I come in with, I'm gonna plan, I'm going to be ready, and then I just have to know the first month or two we're figuring out, like, I might be having a difficult pregnancy, or have a newborn, or I broke my ankle and couldn't walk for like 7 months. I mean, there's like weird stuff that happens in life, and so just like with anything hard, you just kind of have to learn to adjust. So I feel like every fall, even still, I'm having to evaluate, okay, where are we at in our circumstances in our life and my kids' ages, and now I've got 3 full-time kids and, wild child toddler who sabotages everything we do. So there's just a lot of like figuring that out. So I feel like at first, like establishing those routines and then being flexible every year to kind of be okay with evaluating things and adjusting things as you go has been helpful.
Yeah, no, that's really good. One of the things that I realized in scheduling my day is that you have to say no to things. Because when you're at home and when your kids are at home and people know that, they tend to take that as like kind of flexible time. Whereas there are some things that can be flexible and should be, but yeah, I've realized that I have to explain, like, we are actually, like, we have purpose in what we're doing in this time, and to be able to say no to different things. Were there other things that kind of came up with maybe people who didn't homeschool, or maybe people who did but just kind of had a completely different view or schedule comparatively to yours? Or maybe even like family members who didn't understand, or close friends.
I think, I would get, and still sometimes get asked to, maybe watch a child or something, and I want to be willing to do that. And there's times where we drop everything and help someone out for sure, because that's important. But yeah, it's good. And I feel like just talking, I'm like, I don't know, I'm like a mindset, like, I want to help everyone all the time, everywhere. So I just would appeal to my husband, because he has more level-headed than I am and thinks more clearly. So it's like, should I do this? Like, I want to, and sometimes like he's just like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, okay, sweet, So I think, just different things. It's hard. There's like times where family members have come into town for a week and stay with us, and but there is flexibility in homeschool, and that's part of the beauty of it, is that we can take a week off and play with cousins all week, and we can, then do a week in the summer, or maybe have a shorter spring break or whatever, So I've really enjoyed that flexibility to be able to help people, where maybe I wouldn't be if I was obviously working full time or something. So
It is really good. Does anyone have any like fun stories of people questioning why your children weren't in school? I know my kids, they, through the public school, have the opportunity to have some enrichment courses. So it's a day from 9 a.m. to 2:30, and they go all day. They pack a lunch, and they do the fun things like PE and Spanish and art and drama class, and that's really fun. But sometimes when we're at Target on a Wednesday and someone says, "Oh, you guys don't have school today," my kids like to say, "Oh, we just go to school on Mondays." That's the day they go to their program, and so then I have to explain, like, no, we do school at home, but they go to an actual building on Mondays. But so that always kind of makes me laugh when they tell people they only go to school on Mondays.
Yeah, I've had same situation at Target, I'm sure, and they're like, "We don't go to school." I'm like, oh.
It's probably more mainstream now, homeschooling. I mean, because I think when my kids were little, and we tried not to go places, and because they would be like, "We do school at home," and the cashier would be like, what's that? And that was so ingrained in me that when my younger children were, old enough to be doing things, and I went out by myself to the grocery store during the school day, I felt like I was truant. I'm out of the house, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning. What's going on?
Okay, so when we were talking about challenges and getting started, it kind of reminded me of challenges, when you're, like, the practical challenges when you're in it. So, you mentioned, like, the toddler, the baby. What are some things, I've heard of families, like, even scheduling, like, one of their kids, like, at a certain time, like, the toddler's your responsibility, and they, switch off to different times. Have there been any practical things that you've done with the younger kids, or really any of the distractions of the home, to kind of keep the day moving along?
Well, I mean, for us, it really helps if they don't have access to any technology until after school is done. So from 9 to 3, there is no TV on, there is no Kindle, there is no iPod, there is no Xbox or whatever your kids like to do. I mean, we just have to set hours that we're not going to be on technology so that we can get work done. And it's motivating that way. It's motivating to get your work done, to get your chores done, and to it's just teaching them good work ethics, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the last 2 years since I now have a toddler, there's a 5-year gap between my youngest two, so it's kind of been a new thing. But anyway, I've had to get much more. I've always been routine oriented, like we do our chores and we eat breakfast and we start school at this time and we maybe start with these couple of things. But prior to the last couple of years, within that time, I'd kind of be like, okay, I'm going to pull you to work with you one-on-one for a little bit because these two are, reading together, getting along. There was just a lot more of that flexibility. But now having the 3 with a lot more intense work and then the toddler, I just have had to do kind of what you were saying. We have a routine of what we do first and second, and then I have one son go with my toddler while I work one-on-one with this child, and this child's working independently, and then we switch. So I wrote a big schedule out, and that has worked really well for us. And everybody kind of, even our 3-year-old knows where he's supposed to go and who he's with next now this year for sure. He's in on the routine, and so that has been really helpful for us. So, and it's been really fun to see. Fun most days to see. Some days I'm like, what is going on in the basement? But most days it's super fun to see those, siblings kind of step up and, kind of encourage them, find something that you both love to do and make this a special time. And so they look forward to it too. I think it's good for them.
Yeah. No, that's really great. That makes me think too of, just helpful mindsets to have within homeschooling. We've touched on that. It's, it's more than the reading, writing, arithmetic. There's more to that. There's kind of more that you can do having your child, with you during that time. So what were some helpful mindsets or encouraging things that you've discovered along the way?
I think some of my kids have been a lot more easygoing, and, some of them just kind of naturally enjoy the whole learning process. And for some of them, it's just like every school day is the longest day of the year. So I've just tried to see the bigger picture and try to treat each person individually as far as where they are in their growth process, seeing the physical and the spiritual and the mental aspect of their growth. And maybe for some of them, they need more time to share what's in their heart, or they need to they just need a slower pace maybe with school. If something is really frustrating, I just have to just slow it down, make it more their pace, and then I know that they're going to catch up once they get the hang of it. But it's just I can't have this mindset of, well, this is my schedule and for you, and this is how we're going to do it.
That'd be nice.
That'd be nice. That's really good. One of the popular Christian authors that some of us read, Paul Tripp, his brother Ted Tripp, talk about parenting a lot, and one of the phrases they use a lot is having, shepherding your child's heart, and that's based on Proverbs, where the father is saying, give me your heart, and that's something that I think we really had to grow in as we went along, because I was all about the schedule and the getting things done sort of thing, but really working at having your child's heart and knowing what's going on, because that's ultimately more important, and yet it's all part of the big picture, and having to remind myself frequently that this is a season. It's not going to last forever. I think it was when our oldest was a senior in high school and I had all of my kids in school for 1 year. So my oldest was a senior and my youngest was in kindergarten.
Wow.
And we had just moved into the house we're in now in Des Moines. We had been on an acreage and we moved so that our oldest two could be a part of a campus ministry in one of the public high schools. So we moved 6 days before school started.
Wow.
And I'm teaching all of my kids for this 1 year. But after that year, I thought, this is as hard as it's going to get. It was the top of the bell curve. It's after this, we're just going down. And that was really helpful. I mean, as far as seeing that this is not going to be forever.
Yeah.
And yes, we've had lots of good experiences, but it's hard. And we tend to shy away from hard. So just reminding ourselves and getting our spouses and people that care about us to remind us that this is a season, and if God has called us to do this, He'll give us what we need to do it. But yeah, it's not going to last forever. So that has been helpful to me.
Yeah.
And now we're done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think just like delighting in your children and slowing down, as I am preaching to myself, loving them, because I am very like task type A oriented, and so kind of like what you were saying, our children's character is more important than their education, and you can capitalize on the fact that you have so much time with them, and so if you can see that part as most important, I think that can help other things fall in line. A couple other thoughts I had were Sarah McKenzie, who I mentioned before, she says don't work towards rigorous, work towards diligence, and both in our children but in us too. Like a successful day is not like when all the work's done, it's when we've been faithful to work hard and be diligent and maintain our integrity through it. So I think just remembering, like, I think we can put success on just the idea that if our children are thriving, as in doing everything perfectly and in my schedule, like you're saying, then that's success. And I just don't think it is in homeschool, and I definitely have fallen into that. And then when it's not going that way, it's very devastating to your whole self, because you've wrapped so much of yourself into that. So I just think that it's been good to shift to remembering, like, going back to basics. Why are we doing this? And you just have to go back there sometimes and regroup and communicate with your husband. All the things we've been talking about, I think, are good.
Right, and the relationship is always more important. Like, I've had to come back to that over and over again. It's more about the relationship with my child than it is about teaching them this curriculum.
Yeah.
And Proverbs 16:21 says, "The wise in heart are called discerning, and gracious words promote instruction." The gracious words promote instruction is what stuck out to me, because at a certain point in my journey of homeschooling, I just realized that what the words that I'm speaking to my kids really need to be kind. And I need to be patient with them. And that's what they're going to remember.
Yes. I was just listening to a podcast on gentleness by Sally Clarkson, who she also has a lot of great material on homeschooling. And I think her and her husband actually kind of wrote a book on their whole philosophy behind it. But she just referenced the verse, like, a gentle answer turns away wrath. And I just think, like, when something is frustrating, or like when it's hard to learn something, or something's new to me and difficult, I get really frustrated and really angry. And having someone be harsh with me and just tell me just figure it out isn't going to help me. And so, but yet that's kind of my natural reaction when my kids are struggling with something, just well, just do it this way. This is how but saving that relationship, and being gentle and gracious with our children. And sometimes it's hard for me. I still feel like I have that little voice saying, but we can't spend all day just talking and gazing into each other's eyes. We have to get something accomplished. So I just have to remember that will come especially, my children are still young. But yes, any other input on just helpful mindsets or just different ways of thinking? If not, we can move on to support. Where have you found support? And along with that, we can kind of go into like the resources as well. Nicole, I know you've mentioned a couple authors, but support and or resources and kind of continuing along your journey.
I mentioned A Well-Trained Mind by Susan Wise Bauer, which is about classical education at home. And then Sarah McKenzie has a lot of good material. I feel like I connect with her because I feel like we homeschool very similarly. So she has like a podcast and a website and a blog, Read Aloud Revival. And then she has written a few books. One's Read Aloud Family, and then Teaching from Rest was a wonderful book for both encouragement as a homeschool mother, and then also very practical things of how to organize your day, and really great suggestions that have helped me a lot. So those are a couple of those types of resources. I think, like we've said, like your spouse has to be, you got to be on the same page. They are your number one and probably only cheerleader in this. So, like if that's got to be working out. And then, like I have a friend that homeschools very in the similar way as I do, and so that's been a huge support to just like, what are you doing next year with this? And our first few kids are the same ages, so just like bouncing ideas off each other, and so friends and other homeschool families. There's lots of co-ops. I think getting part of some sort of homeschool community, if you can, is really beneficial. There's a lot of support to be offered there, and just kind of, I feel like I'm so blessed to know so many homeschool families. There's so many people I could go to, and if I was alone in this, it would be almost impossible, I feel like. So finding some sort of community to get involved in. Like you mentioned, we are part of also the homeschool assistance program through our school district, which has been helpful. Lots of online forums, support groups, and information. I feel like that has helped me too. So
I think it kind of just depends what your goals are. I think each individual family is going to have different goals for how they want to homeschool and approach it. So for us, we work pretty closely with our home instruction program and also with the public school because we chose to kind of integrate our kids into the public school during middle school and high school. So that's been important to us.
Yeah, I feel like there's probably a lot more out there now. Most of my support came from just talking to friends who homeschooled. And we did have a supervising teacher because that was one of the requirements back then. I don't even know what the requirements are now. But there was at least that one person who would be a resource, and various things. Homeschool support groups can be great if you know what you need and you have the relational capacity, because a lot of us, at least I'm speaking for us in this room, already have a lot going on within our church community and stuff. So sometimes can be burdensome, but you have to kind of know yourself and know what you need and know the expectations of the group.
They're like, so once you get into kind of the homeschool circles, I feel like there are like so many opportunities, which is really awesome. But there's been years where we're like, we gotta quit everything except this one thing, because we had we actually have to be home and homeschool our children. Right. We can't just be like going to tumbling and going to choir and going to this group and this exploration group. But there's so many cool things, but you do have to pick and choose and prioritize your time, because it can get overwhelming.
And depending on the different ages of your kids, you might be involved in different things, different years, I've found too.
For sure.
Lena, you kind of mentioned your guys' goal and kind of how you proceeded was to integrate into the public schools eventually. That's what my husband did as well when he was younger. What kind of made you decide when to kind of make the switch, and how seamless or unseamless was that?
Yeah, I mean, our oldest, she's graduated from college now, and she was kind of our guinea pig. So we started with her in orchestra in 5th grade, and then she did math in 8th grade, and then she went full-time in high school, and that was her desire too. So we were all on the same page about it. We let them have some say in it when they were in junior high and high school, what their goals were for their education. And we haven't done it the same for every child.
Right.
We've kind of had to see where their strengths lie, because we want them to be ready to go out and be on mission when they get to school, to reach out to their fellow students and kind of be a leader, not just be a follower.
Joe, did you homeschool all the way through graduation?
Not exactly. So we in high school would start to put them in part-time.
Yeah.
And some of it had to do with where we lived, if there was a ministry like at the public school. When my older kids were in public school age, there was more of an active ministry going on in the public schools. So that played a part in it. What the public schools had to, or what the schools had to offer that I couldn't do, that I could see, kind of a direction for a particular child. But we generally, especially with the first 4, we put them part-time in high school, and we did some at home. And then, with the younger 2, kind of completely switched up. With my daughter, she went to public school part-time as a freshman. Then she did a co-op, a high school co-op, and at home. And then her senior year she did through Central Campus, where she could actually get some DMAC credit.
Right.
And that I wish I'd investigated that sooner with more of my kids, because college credit while in high school, that's a plus.
That is,
And then with our youngest, he actually went to private school for all of high school, and that was just a number of factors went into that. So we feel like we could talk to anybody about any of those options, but it was not one size fits all for sure. So.
Yeah, even with our very limited experience, our first 2 did not do a preschool, but our third, we actually sent him to the preschool down the street, with more of our intention being that I would have more time with the older 2 to instruct. But it's been great. It's a faith-based private preschool, and it's 4 minutes away from our house, and he's going again for the 2nd year this year, and I'm excited because I feel like he's going to have such a great base for us to work forward from, and so I think that's our plan with our 4th child as well. But things kind of switch up when you learn about different things,
right,
and different opportunities. So we'll just kind of start wrapping up. I guess maybe we'll go through and just say one final maybe piece of encouragement or a success story. Just something to someone who's maybe thinking about jumping into homeschooling or jumping out of homeschooling. I guess something you would say to them maybe.
I was just thinking about the verse Ephesians 2:10. It says, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared ahead of time for us to do." And so that's just been encouraging for me as if this is something God's guided me to do, and this is the good work, that he has me doing now, he's prepared this and laid this out ahead of time. And I've just felt, at times where I feel like giving up or just a lack of confidence, I feel like I can just go back to that and remember that for me and my faith, like this is not my little kingdom that I'm setting up, but this is the good work I'm doing for the Lord and for His kingdom. And so that's been encouragement to me in general. So
I mean, for whatever reason, you're homeschooling right now, whether you planned on it or not, just know that your efforts aren't in vain and that it will pay off. And, you know, all of our kids have become more independent learners through homeschooling. And, you know, we have one graduated from college, one is in college right now, and they're doing just fine.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, whatever you do your work heartily. It's for the Lord, because He's the one that you'll answer to for how you've raised your children, whether you homeschool them or not. Yeah, just make sure you're convinced in your own mind of what God wants you to do. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies, for all your wisdom. And with that, we will close.